What it do, Dream Team? It's your boy D Neal back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with what living in Australia is like, explained by American South Australia, Sydney, part 2. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. What we got?
Pretty big tourist industry. A lot of people go to Sydney just doing touristy things. So there's of course a ton of touristy things to do there. The big companies you all see like Westfields around, which is like a mall. It's kind of like a brand of mall. I don't really know what to compare it to out here, but yeah, it's kind of a branded mall. So they employ a lot of people, and that's where a lot of people go and do their shopping are at Westfields. And then Vodafone is kind of like the Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, Sprint, kind of all combined out there. Wow. And I know that they cover a lot of like European countries as well. And so those are kind of the two big kind of all billboards you see all over the place are usually for like Westfields or Vodafone. Okay. They're very strict on the speed limit there. If you go a kilometer or two over, then you'll get a ticket. And so people actually drive like under the speed limit there. Like the speed limit there is the speed limit. You don't go over it. And versus Utah, you're going like 80 in a 75 mile an hour zone and cars are whizzing past you. There you don't want to go over the speed limit, otherwise you'll get a ticket. Okay. And so that's kind of interesting, and the speed limits are slower there, and so you kind of feel like you're chugging along. When you think back to Utah or the U.S. in general, you just want to be considerate and drive. They lay on the horn a lot more than people do. I feel like out here in Utah, and you don't want to get freaked out just because somebody honks at you, because they're probably not even that upset at you. You might just be. If you go like outside the lines at all, then you'll probably get. They call it beeped. They don't call it honk. They call it they'll beep at you. So they don't see it as being as offensive. I feel like as we do here, and so just little cultural differences in driving and transportation, and a lot. Like I said earlier, a lot more people take public transport or take the buses, and that's kind of more of a built into the culture than it is here.
So it's not like a rude thing. They just trying to help you out. Like, hey. You swerving outside the line a little bit. Get back in there. And maybe honk at you if the light turned and you still haven't lit. I know they do that here in America. But yeah, I feel like here in America that honk is more like it's become an offensive thing. So when somebody honks at you, people get offended instead of the reason that they're getting honked at. And most people honk because they're angry at somebody or because they know somebody.
In the suburban areas, it's a lot slower. Life seems more kicked back, and a lot of the people are just like, oh, no worries, just kind of go with the flow a bit. But if you've ever been to California, that's how it looks, is that you're walking down California, it's just so green. In the summer, in the spring, it starts to feel really warm and humid. In the summer is where it starts to feel a little bit like Arizona. But then, it's just so lush and beautiful. But it also can be very cold in the winter, where it was hard for me that it just was humid cold. And it felt a lot like being in Arkansas or Mississippi during the winter time. You could just feel it seep through your clothes, like nothing you were wearing was enough.
I don't like that cold.
For the most part, weather was great, and the people were great. You had the Turkish people, you had lots of Chinese, lots of Koreans. There was a lot of Polynesians, more than I thought would be there. Actually, I was surprised as a Polynesian myself to have been surrounded by so many that lived in Australia. But for the most part, it was actually a really good living area. I didn't feel like I was in Australia sometimes. I just felt like I was in the USA. I would say that Australia is a very safe place. They don't have like any gun laws. They're like not allowed there. But even just the crime rate in general, It's very safe. Everybody's really loving. I think it's more towards the city that you get people who are fast-paced and don't want to talk to you. But it's really good with, with transportation. We have a bus that will come for about, every 10 minutes. When you get to the city, it's every 5. And then the trains are very, quick pace. There's a train, every 5 minutes when we were serving in the city. Towards the outskirts, it's maybe every 30 minutes, every hour. But the people, just in general, going across those areas, as I notice that as the transportation, as the life, the cost of living just starts to boost higher and higher, it just seems that the people go that route too. And I wouldn't say they're mean, but it's just they're kind of there's a little business scene everywhere. That the closer you get to the city, it'll just feel a lot business-like rather than homely.
I feel like that's probably the same. Like she said, similar here in America. I feel like bigger cities, people are more like that because it seems like, I don't know, it seems like they're always in a rush somewhere. They're always in a rush. They don't have time to sit and talk to anyone. When they order something, they need it immediately, and they don't it's like they don't have time for manners in a sense. They're just go 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 is their mindset. And so I can definitely understand what she's talking about, because I feel like in the bigger cities here in America, very similar to what she's saying.
It'll just feel a lot business-like rather than homely. This is just a little bit of advice if you're coming to the Australia Sydney North Mission. Don't expect to see kangaroos. You'll only see them in the zoos or when you're in the northern parts of the mission. But other than that, it's the Sydney South Mission that experiences more kangaroos and wombats than we do. It's more, I guess, westernized. There's more city and homes and things like that. There's not too many areas where it's just bush.
Okay. So it's a very, you have left and right wing here, and overall it's much more to the left over in Australia. And I don't know if you would say socialist or whatever, but the government is a lot more involved. And for example, we had the American Healthcare Act passed, but there it's kind of just been ingrained in their culture that if you're an Australian citizen, then you get free healthcare. And so I had Australian companions that would just go up and they had their card, and they just give it to the doctor and not pay anything for a medical visit. And that has pros and cons, and you have longer waits sometimes to have surgery and all this. You have all this debate, and whether or not it's good for here, I don't know. But I had never really met an Australian that was unhappy with how healthcare was. They all loved it and would talk it up. Like I said, the government a lot more involved. I know missionaries would get go on the dole while they were on their mission, so they would file for unemployment. This is Australian missionaries, and I think a few New Zealand missionaries would do it as well. But so they would file for unemployment while they were on their mission, and then get a monthly stipend from the government that would just go into their saving account back home, and so they would go home having made a fairly decent amount of money just from being unemployed on their mission. So there's I don't know if that was...
Dang! That's smart, though. That's smart.
Being unemployed on their mission. So there's I don't know if that would... You can maybe figure something like that out here in the U.S., but I think it's a lot more common for people to take advantage, and whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't know, but they would for sure take advantage of the government programs a lot more than I feel it's culturally common here in the U.S. Other benefits, I'd just say as a whole, Australians are a lot more laid back than people are in the U.S. They're not in overall as big of a hurry. There's laid back, but they're also, I would say, and this is going to sound negative when I say it, but I don't mean to be, they're a lot more almost rude. For example, when you walk into a store here, most of the time you're greeted and asked if there's anything you can do for help, or anything they can do to help you.
Yeah.
And there, it's not like that at all. You like walk into a store, and if you need help, then you go find somebody to help you, and they'll help you. But it's not like they're at the front door waiting for you to come in.
Gotcha.
People, like when you go knock on their door, it seems rude at first that they'll just like tell you to go away. But you start, I don't know, at least for me, I stopped seeing it as rude and just started seeing it as like they don't want you, like they don't want to waste your time, they don't want to waste their time, and so they'll just kind of tell you to go away. And it seems rude, but it's just that's what they think and that's what they tell you. And
yeah, and I feel like that makes sense. In order to not waste anyone's time, it's like not gonna beat around the bush. Just not interested in what you got to say. Go about your way.
So I think it's culturally just a little bit different than we are here, where somebody comes and knocks on your door, and even if you don't really want them there a lot of the time, then you'll like find a roundabout way to tell them to go away and not be as abrasive about it. Yeah. And so that's just kind of a few differences in culture. Also, kind of another thing, there's Aboriginals, like native Australians. There's a big push to try and a lot of them are in kind of slums, and they drink a lot. And there's a pretty big push in the government to try and get them back incorporated into society, so that's kind of an issue that they're trying to deal with over there. I feel like even a little bit more than we are with Native Americans here, even though it's some of the same issues that are common to both groups of people. The school there is handled, and they have their public education system, but it's actually interesting. A lot more people send their kids to private schools, and so that's. I feel like it's kind of big here in Utah to send your kids to private or charter.
I don't want to run into none of them Jonas at the public schools. Don't want their kids in there with them Jonas at a public school.
Charter schools, but it's a lot bigger there. I think that in general, though, Australians are they're very positive about living there. They enjoy the benefits that they have. They don't mind paying higher taxes most of the time. I mean, you get the politics there too, but like they get more vacation time, I feel like, a lot of the time than we do here, and they get more benefits from the government than we do here. I'm not exactly sure what the minimum wage there is, but a lot of the base wages are quite a bit higher. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're working at McDonald's, you're probably making $15 an hour. Or at the movie theater, like $20 an hour. So it's a lot different, and the cost of living is higher, but you get more money and you can manage that more how you like. Then again, to go to the movies, it's like $18 to $20, whereas it's $8 to $11 here or whatever it is. But it's a lot of things like that are almost twice as expensive than they are here in the U.S.
That makes sense. Overall, definitely sounds a bit more expensive, but we also understand the salaries and they get paid more, so it probably ends up evening out in the long run. But that's all we got. You guys got a favorite video suggestion, you can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, give the video a thumbs up so I can suggest it. It's your boy Neal. Out.